All right, so this is going to be my live stream preview for the Ravens' visit to Pittsburgh in Week 14, and this is going to be a very different type of preview video. Normally, I'll show some film of the Ravens and their opponents, and talk about different matchups or different situations that I think might be important. But I can't cover every situation clearly, and I'm actually like 2 days behind on my prep on this. To be honest with you, as you can tell by my voice, I've been sick. So I will show some Steelers film later on. We'll focus on 3 of their offensive players. I'm not sure that I really need to highlight, Highsmith and Watt's ability, and Hayward, their ability to sack and get after the quarterback. I think, the Ravens will probably have some difficulty with that at times. This is going to be kind of like a culmination of some thoughts that I've had for the better part of a couple of years. I don't know that I had these thoughts in 2020. And in fact, in our Discord, someone, I think it was Camo, pointed out that my theory on a seasonal regression for our points, and to a lesser extent some of Lamar's productivity, but I don't think that really the second part of that really applies in 2022. That dip in points per game, that dip in production and efficiency, didn't happen in 2020. So, and I think I would tend to agree with that. So what I did for this preview was, besides ask the graphics guru to make a badass, picture with all the different things that people say about Lamar, Harbaugh, our team, our defense, Greg Roman, whoever, I created some statistics, or I aggregated some data, I should say, from 2021 and 2022. And it's my theory, before I show you the data, it's my theory that most of our regression is typically due to predictability. And I don't mean predictability overall, like they like to run the ball. That's way too simple. That's not even, I shouldn't even call that simple. It's like elementary. It's situational, it's based on personnel, and it's based on formation. And I know that I continue to mention that word formation, and I don't hear it used often. Some people call it sets, whatever. It's the way that the offensive players align, and what that alignment tells the defense in terms of angles and number of players to each side, and what the offense generally likes to do out of that formation. And that's where you get tendencies. Yes, you get tendencies on down and distance, 1st and 10, 2nd and 6. Yes, you get tendencies based on personnel. 22 personnel for us is way more run heavy. 11 personnel is completely in the other direction. Our 11 personnel is way more pass heavy. Our 21 personnel with 2 backs and 1 tight end is actually like 52-48 run pass, something like that. So actually more balanced. But predictability really means that the defense has an understanding of what's coming based upon the situation. And situation really has 3 markers, down and distance, personnel, and formation. And I'm telling you, and I have said this in videos, you can go back and, not that I want you to, but you can go back and listen to videos I talked about last year in Week 2. After Week 2, our game against the Chiefs last year, I made it a point to say, we're getting in this formation and running this play the first time we get in that formation. Then we're getting in a different formation, and we're running a different play almost the first time we get in that formation every game. Coaches do have tendencies like that, and I'm telling you that people, myself included, I'm doing it for the I'm doing it now as a Ravens content creator. I did it in high school as a defensive coordinator. I know people 20 times smarter than me who do this in high school and college, and they would chart your formation. Let's say Pro Twins A, and they would chart your formation Pro Twins A, and they would chart the first 5 plays every game at a Pro Twins A. And they would look at the down and distance, they would look at the personnel, and they would look at the play that was called. And let's say that 80% of the time, 4 out of those 5 times, the first time you line up in Pro Twins A, you run this play. Guess what? The first time you line up in Pro Twins A against us in the game, we're going to sell out to stop that play and not put ourselves at too much risk of whatever that 5th play was that you've run to open a game out of Pro Twins A. Hopefully that makes sense. If I use too much terminology there, forgive me. My point is, people are going to study the situation, and they're going to have their teams prepped. And it's my opinion that in 2021, the first team to really do that was the Cincinnati Bengals. And we didn't know in Week 7 back then how great that defense was. Nobody knew. We do now. They can be shut down at times. They can be a shutdown defense at times. And they were in the playoffs last year. Had a chance to win the Super Bowl. So the really prepared defenses, they're going to have a plan for each situation, or as many situations as they can. And then they'll have just check calls, meaning let's just run our base coverage, our base defense in a certain situation, so that the players don't have to remember 30 situations in a game. But I'm here to tell you that you can aggregate the calls, meaning you can assign these 2 players to 21 personnel, and they only have to remember 21 personnel calls. And then you can assign these other 2 players to 11 personnel calls, and they only have to remember formations and tendencies in 11 personnel. And that's one way you can separate the memory so that each player doesn't have to remember 30 things. You can take 5 or 6 players and have them remember 4 or 5 things each. And that's more doable. Before we show the data, I do want to make one point. I don't think that the Ravens dip in points per game is about personnel. I know a lot of you do. I just don't. And I've been saying that for over a year of content creation, more than a year, actually. That doesn't mean that you should listen. That's not why I say that. I've been saying I'm sticking to what I have said it is, which is predictability. And there's other factors, right? Obviously. Red zone, we have a lack of identity, a lack of execution, player-wise, poor play calling, coaches-wise. So red zone has been a mess, complete mess. The predictability in play calling and in situations, inconsistency of some of our players at times, lack of self-scouting, meaning are we even aware of how predictable we are? I don't know. We should be. We're a professional football team. We should have at least 2 or 3 people like me that are willing to sit in front of a computer all day and try to figure something out, or think they figure something out, and then present it to the people that can do something about it. And then for me, further down the list of that is personnel. And I understand that other people would have personnel at the top, but this is not Madden. It's not Madden where you just get the best players and that's it. You have constraints, and the Ravens have tried to build a roster. Whether you agree with it or not, I don't care, for real. I'm telling you that the main issue is predictability. And what happens is, as the data is built up over 4 or 5 weeks of the season, you get numbers that look like this. Now, I don't know if you'll agree with me or not, and you may not. That's okay. Forgive me, first of all, if this is an ugly graphic. All right, but you see the top data is 2021, bottom data 2022. And we got the weeks going across and who we played underneath, with the quarterback who played in that game underneath of that for each game. And I may have made some mistakes here, all right? And what I did by highlighting something in like dark purple or light purple is that's our hot start to 2021. And then, here's our hot start to 2022. But once we get beyond that, I think teams defensively have built up enough data to be able to look at each situation and know or have a pretty good idea of what we're running. And I'm saying the same thing that other people say, except we say it differently. Some people say we run the same plays every week. Well, yeah, we do. In a lot of situations, we do. Other people say, we go away from what's working. Yeah, we do. Right? And we are now currently, I think in 2022, maybe we lasted a little longer in 2022 than we did in 2021. So I've got this shaded a little bit lighter here. Because, we still scored 27 and 27 on the road against Tampa Bay and on the road against New Orleans. Okay, fine. So let's say we elongated our efficiency time period, the time period when we were efficient. I'm saying to you that this week here, Carolina aligns with that one right there. The Bengals in week 7 last year. Why? I don't know. Maybe our coaches were a little bit more prepared. Maybe it's because, we played 2 teams in week 8 and week 9 that were less familiar with us. I don't know. We hadn't played Tampa Bay in a while, hadn't played New Orleans in a while. And then you have one game where we kind of return to what we are capable of offensively. But we were capable of scoring 34 against Jacksonville. That was all players. That was all player drops, missed passes, missed execution, poor blocking. But the poor blocking, and I kind of alluded this a little bit on a Film Study Ravens podcast earlier this week, could be attributed to predictability. Because defenses line up based on your tendencies. And if your tendency is to run the ball to the offense's right, defense's left, on a particular formation, linebackers are going to move over. And now those angles for your tight end, your guard, your tackle to combo up, those angles are different because that linebacker is 2 feet further to the play side than he, quote, should be. So predictability has an impact on player execution, particularly in the run game, if you ask me. It can in the pass game as well. So by showing you these stats, what I was trying to do was show, the points per game average and what's happening to it as the season progresses. And you don't need me, to create this data chart to know that in 2022, the same thing is happening. We reached our crescendo after the 37 points in New England in week 3, and then started dropping. And now we're down to 23.75, I believe. Somehow or another, does it seem like we're going to end up at 23? Yes, it does. It does seem that way, right? If we continue to be predictable, if we continue to be horrible in the red zone, then yeah, we're going to end up down there. Now, I know a lot of people outside Ravens, fans would say, well, yeah, you're getting ready to lose every game Tyler Huntley plays. Well, we have a totally different defense. Last year, our defense was a sieve in the last 5 or 6 games of the season. Somehow, we stuck around close with the Packers and the Rams. No idea how. With an extremely depleted DB core. You remember the DB core that we played against the Bengals up there in Cincinnati? Totally different defense. So we have a better opportunity to win games with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. This data is not meant to say that it's not Greg Roman's fault. This is the data that shows what his system, why his system fails over the course of the year, in my opinion. I don't think it's, now granted, 2021, we know that we had a lot of injuries. We know offensive line, running backs, so there's a lot of factors there. I understand that. This is now 2 years in a row where we're seeing the same dip. And we've got a 25-year-old version of Lamar Jackson. We don't have a 22 or 23-year-old version of Lamar Jackson. He's grown up. We've got guys who can do what they're supposed to do on defense that can get us the ball back. And in this case, now, I think we have basically this period here, and whoever knows what's getting ready to happen in Pittsburgh, to me, aligns with this time period here. That's my general theory. And, of course, I didn't have that theory last year concerning 2022, but I had that theory that Bengals game was chickens coming home to roost, was predictability causing a dip in points per game output because there's enough data at that point for the defenses to really line up in a certain way and have basically have the answers to the test before you take it. I don't know if any of y'all has ever copied or cheated on a test. I never have, but I'm imagining that if you have the answers and you figure out some kind of way to have it inside of a book and have it sticking out a little bit so you can see the answers and copy them onto the test sheet, but everybody else doesn't know that you have the answers. The defense is trying to do the same thing. They're trying to line up in a way that they know they have the answers, but they're not giving it away by moving too far toward the play side. They don't want to give away. They don't want to hedge their bets too much and make it obvious to anyone looking who's paying attention. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not trying to give you surface level judgment here. I'm trying to say to you that on a systemic level, by being so predictable in so many formations over time, the ceiling on the offense is lowered because teams know what's coming. And they can put their best players in certain spots because they know what's coming. And we don't do a good enough, it seems to me we don't do a good enough job self-scouting to mitigate that. What I mean by self-scouting is someone scouting our offense as if we're going to play them and then saying, hey, here's these tendencies that I see. Here's these things that we're doing that I think would make it a little bit easier to stop you. And then, the offense guys get pissed off and hopefully it makes them adapt whether they get pissed off or not. Hopefully it makes them, you talk about like going into a fight and not leaving any bullets in the chamber. Sometimes you got to put more bullets in there. Sometimes you have to create additional plays or you have to have things already built in. And it seems like we're not adapting. That's the problem. That's a huge problem. I mentioned the Jacksonville game was, in my opinion, mostly on players offensively. Defensively, we were horrible in the fourth quarter, coaches and players. But offensively, the blame for the offense was on players. They were put in position to score 31 or 34 or 35 points, and they failed. All of them, or mostly all of them. But Carolina and Denver, these two games here, this is coaching, period. That is coaching. Offensively, I'm talking about. The players can struggle with certain situations at times, and I'm going to give you the one that I think our coaches struggle with offensively. And I've said this for over a year, and there's people who say, like, oh, people just man up our receivers. No, they don't. No, they don't. Look at what the Broncos played. Look at what Carolina played. Jacksonville, to my knowledge, played a little bit more man. Hopefully, I'm sure that there are people in here right now listening who pay attention to the games just as intently as I do. And you can correct me where I'm wrong. Carolina and Denver played too high safety structures generally, except for Carolina against 22 personnel. Against 22 personnel, they played a 5-3. So they played a very aggressive run-stopping defense, and credit to them. But I'm talking about like 21 personnel or our 12 personnel. Too high stuff, disciplined coverage, keeping everything in front, safeties getting their run-pass read, run read, filling, pass read, covering, whatever their coverage responsibility was. We don't see a ton of cover 3. We do see some man free at times, particularly on third down sometimes, but you don't get that a ton with Lamar because of how dangerous he is breaking outside the pocket. So man free is kind of mitigated by Lamar. And that's where, to me, I feel like our offensive staff fails even more. If you know there's a couple of coverages that people can't play or shouldn't play against Lamar, then you can kind of predict the coverages that are out there just in a generic sense. And then all the data that they get, they should be able to predict the coverages even better. And I think that Greg Roman's system, Greg Roman's style of play calling, he has trouble with the too high safety structure, like the Bills play, like the Bengals play often. They're a little bit more aggressive than the Bills, like Denver played, and like Carolina played, except not Carolina's 5-3. Too high safety structure, either a 4-3 or 3-4, but generally an even front, 4-3, or it could be a nickel in the case of the Bengals. And those guys keeping everything in front, limiting the big play, making us execute up and down the field, and making us convert 3rd and 4s. Now, how have we historically converted 3rd and 4, 3rd and 3? QB counter read, QB power read. What's happened to those plays? They have become less effective over the course of the year. Why? They're predictable. The people know the defenses know the formation that we're running those things out of. And that's what all of those factors, and personnel is a factor too. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not going to sit here and waste my breath in December on a freaking draft that was earlier this year. You can do that if you want to. I don't care. If we got there and signed OBJ, great, wonderful. I'm happy. I wish Rashad Bateman was healthy. That would, if Rashad Bateman was healthy, I still think you would see this, hot start, level down maybe, or gear down, and then even possibly gear down even more as the season goes on. Even if Rashad Bateman was here, I think we would probably have a better record. A healthy Rashad Bateman would help this team tremendously. I think you will agree. But I still think we're predictable to the point where defenses can put themselves in the best position. Now let's shift this a little bit. Does this regression apply to Lamar as well? Well, it did last year in 2021. So here's the stats 2021, except omitting the Browns game on the road. Compare the stats here to the stats that's in that black box there. Right? You have a clear difference. 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, down in here versus, much better stats up top. Except for, I know the Bengals game, he didn't throw an interception, but you got really low completion percentage. I think we definitely had 2 balls there that I thought should have been caught. And then one pretty bad decision by him that, we got away with. But in any case, clearly that was the best part of the season for him, weeks 1 through 9, culminating in that basically superhero effort against the Vikings. And then from then on out, you definitely had a decrease in statistics. Although I still thought, this game here, he was ready to perform and play well. I thought we should have thrown deep more against that Dolphins BS sticks coverage. I know that we threw a lot of screens last year against it, and then we come out and do the same thing this year at home against the Dolphins when they ran it. I just don't think that's the way to beat that coverage. But in any case, you see a regression somewhat in this area of the season for him. Now, this year, 2022, I do not think his stats align with a regression. I have 3 boxes here. The first 4 is his hot start, right? Week 8 against Tampa Bay, he played near flawless. I know there was 25 passes in the first half, and we had multiple incompletions, but I thought he played quite well, and statistically, you can see that he did too. Week 11 against Carolina doesn't look like a great game by him, but it was 72% completion percentage. Probably should have been 82. That was the game where I think there was, 4 or 5 drops. Jacksonville, I thought there might have been 6. I think Jacksonville was the game where there might have been 6, but I could be wrong. So I still think those 2 games indicate that his performance has not dipped, and we're not even talking about at all, any of this stuff over here. The rush yards that he contributes. My point is, I don't think that Lamar, if he was continue to play, which I think hopefully comes back in 2 or 3 weeks, he's not the issue in terms of a regression. He was put on the cover because it's a badass picture, and I figured that everybody would like to see that picture because it looks really cool. Now, how does it relate to the Steelers? We're going to have real preparedness for the Steelers because I don't think we're going to be able to walk in there and have Tyler Huntley just throw the quick game 30 times, meaning, quick passes, 3-step drop. The Steelers have always been multiple coverage-wise, always. That they will throw us curveballs, they'll throw us fastballs, they'll throw us sliders. And it'll be our coaches' jobs to have Huntley and everybody else prepared to adjust. And that's the part that, right now, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're just going to come in there and run the same stuff? I mean, a part of me says yes. Part of me says we're just going to come in there and run the same stuff. And at the end of the day, we're going to score 13 points in here. And that's going to pull this number down even further. I mean, that's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. It seemed to me we were in 11 personnel more. Well, 11 or 12 personnel more with Likely. I think Likely is a real X factor here in this game against the Steelers. A real X factor. When we go 12 personnel flex with Huntley, we put Likely out there in the slot. I think that's going to be a real issue for the Steelers. I'm not saying that they don't have people that can guard him. After the catch, he's a handful. Before the catch, he's a handful. And we're not even talking about Mark Andrews. Huntley, we know, trusts Mark Andrews. Went to him a lot last year. I think the Ravens will have to come out here and kind of betray their tendencies a little bit. Naturally, they'll do that anyway because they have Huntley on the field instead of Lamar. It's just unfortunate that we're sitting here, and maybe you don't believe my theory. Maybe you don't believe my theory here that there is a regression in points per game overall in the offense, and it is generally due to predictability. It's not due to style. If we threw the ball 72% of the time, but our formations were predictable, teams would still be able to take that away. And then we would have to counter it. I don't think we've done a good job countering it. I really don't. Our formations that are, quote, predictable, at least the primary play is predictable, we haven't gone to the complementary plays enough, in my opinion, to try to combat what defenses are doing. And so, let me put it to you this way. Like the Broncos last week, they sat in their too high look with their split field coverages, and they let us dink and dunk the whole time. And Huntley was 27 of 32. The Steelers are not going to let us do that this week. The Steelers are going to play coverages to take away some of those things. They're going to play 2 read, and I'm really, to be honest with you, I'm not going to show Ravens film. This has gone on long enough. This was my theory that I wanted to present. I'm going to show some Steelers film. I'm going to talk about their main 3 players offensively. But I wanted to make the point to you guys, or at least push this out there, and forgive me again if this graphic is really ugly. that I think we're seeing the same dip here. Well, we know we are. We're seeing the same dip. If we break pattern, we put up something like this, 27, I mean, A, I'll be happy. B, I'll be kind of surprised. I don't know about you. I'll be really happy for Tyler Huntley. It'd be interesting to me how we do it. I just don't know how we get to that many points this week. And that's me even, recognizing that the Steelers right now defensively are not the same type of defense that we have seen in previous years. If you guys want, me to share this chart or something like this or whatever, just let me know in the comment section. I can post it up in a shared link. This was a theory that we've talked about in the Discord for a while, one that I had in my head last year and actually put in video form. I don't know if those videos are still around because my channel got deleted. I had to start a new one. But I put it out there after the Kansas City game. And then the next week against the Lions, lo and behold, the offense stunk. Now, there was a lot of reasons for the offense stinking, but I thought part of it was because we were predictable in some of those situations that I had called us out for being predictable. And I like to explain what I mean when I say predictable and not just throw it out there and say such and such sucks or we need to get rid of such and such. I like to explain what it is. I actually do have a little bit of video to show, not in this preview. I'll do it in a separate video of the Ravens, basically showing what I'll do is, if you guys are interested, let me know. I'll show a formation that we've used in like week 1, 2, 3, and 4, and how people were lining up, and then how people were lining up differently later on in the year. To be honest with you, I didn't have time to prep it, but I know 2 formations I can use. I appreciate you guys checking this out. My voice is giving out, so I'm recording this in segments. The next segment's going to be the Steelers offense. We're going to talk about Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, and George Pickens, and how those guys can impact the game on Sunday in different ways. Pickett through decision-making, getting rid of the ball quick, spreading the ball around with a lot of guys. Najee Harris, they need to get a run game going so they're not completely one-dimensional. And then my last point in that video will be how I think Pickens can change the game in one play, and the Ravens need to be real careful and real considerate of that, depending on where he lines up and how we try to defend him. Let me know what you think in the comment section of my theory here. Excuse me. Of my theory here, seasonal regression. It is not meant to be about Lamar, to be honest with you, although I understand that people outside the Ravens fan base and people outside the people who really watch the Ravens, that's what they're going to say about Lamar, particularly if he's out 2 or 3 weeks. Then they're going to do the same thing they did last year. Oh, he only threw 16 touchdowns last year. Well, he was out for 6 games or whatever it was, something like that. And so they would do the same thing this year, which is just short-sighted and really ignorant. So appreciate you guys checking the video out. Let me know what you think of this part of it as we move into the Steelers preview next. All right, I'm a little behind on some of my preview stuff for the Steelers, to be honest with you. So this offensive preview for the Steelers is really going to focus on 3 guys. And I'm going to show some situations as well and certainly talk about Pat Freiermuth, Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, and George Pickens. So the first set that we'll go through will be throws and plays from Kenny Pickett, basically in the last 4 games. Look, he's been playing turnover-free in the last 4 games when the Steelers have gone 3-1. The only loss being a 37-30 loss to the Bengals, I think in week 11. All right, we're going to let some of these plays run. I'm just going to talk through some of the things that I think I've seen. Some of the routes will be labeled for you. He spreads the ball around, I think, especially in their 11 personnel spread look, for lack of a better word. He moves the ball around to different guys. You're going to see, completions to receivers, completions to running backs like this one. Johnson, Freiermuth, Pickens, Najee Harris. And he's protecting the football, I think, here recently. I know he has 8 interceptions. I think there's 3 fumbles on the year, but only 1 lost. He definitely prefers to throw the ball to Freiermuth on 3rd down, for real. But he's of line in terms of protection and giving him time to go through the reads. He deals with pressure well. A lot more athletic than people give him credit for. 3rd and 3 here. Going to be a zone read. He's going to keep it. They do a nice job with the tight end, getting out on the corner, sealing the edge, letting him bounce it outside for a 14-yard gain. He deals with it, at least from the film that I have seen. Again, I've only grabbed film from the last 4 weeks. Dealt with a lot of pressure. 6 sacks in week 10, I think, against the Saints. Defensive pass interference on a slot fade. I really think the Ravens could have trouble with Pickens in the slot. I'm not sure how they'll handle that. If it's third down like it is here, you could see Marlon Humphrey on him. But then that means the Ravens are probably in dime, or what is their version of dime. But anyway, 6 sacks against the Saints. It's a little concerning if you're a Steelers fan and, Steelers coaches. But again, spreads the ball around, makes quick decisions. I'll give you the end zone angle a couple of times here so you can see his helmet. I think he works through the progressions quickly. I think he understands that he probably has to. I don't want to make it out to be like their offensive line is horrible, but there are some times where there is quick pressure in his face. One thing I will say about him is he will stand in there, though, in the face of that pressure and deliver the football. He's not flighty. He's not getting out of there, and he knows the guys to find in certain situations. Freiermuth is a beast. Especially likes to do a lot of work, it seems like, into the boundary. And I don't have a section of this, dedicated to Freiermuth. I mean, I very easily could have. He's a hell of a player. Made 2 plays there to get him down and get him in field goal range. I think this field goal put the Steelers up 20-17 at the half of that game against the Bengals. And like I said, they went on to lose 37-30. So they gave a good accounting. He definitely relies on Freiermuth on third down. But one thing I'll say is he's comfortable throwing the ball the entire horizontal width of the field. It's not like, now I don't see a ton of deep balls downfield. I see a lot of quick decisions. And that's an asset. It's going to be a similar game offensively between him and Tyler Huntley because Tyler Huntley likes to get the ball out quick. A lot of short routes. I would say Pickett, short, intermediate routes, makes quick decisions, appears very comfortable with the coverage. To me, looks really smooth when they're in 11 personnel, like you see here. And he diagnoses man well. I'm not sure what, I have no idea what he sees pre-snap against each team because the level of preparation that NFL guys put in for each defense is going to be unbelievable. And I'm only, able to look at 4 films starting on Wednesday. So, and look, you have a tremendous, unique asset out there on the outside, Pickens, someone who did a film study, I can't remember who it was, talked about he can push off without pushing off. Meaning he's not going to get called for these push-offs when he does put his hand out because he doesn't extend his hand. So some of these unbelievable catches along the sideline, I'm not sure that they're ever going to disappear from his repertoire. Even as he gets older, the guy's he's so long and he adjusts to the ball so well. And I think Kenny Pickett, trusts him. It's going to sound kind of crazy if you're a Steelers or a Ravens fan. You're probably not going to like this. The threat of Pickens, from the sideline and in like 5 yards, almost reminds me of like Jamar Chase. And I know that that's a crazy comparison because Chase is so much smaller. He's done so much in the league, but there's certain coverages, I think, if you play cover 3 or man free, you give Kenny Pickett the opportunity to just throw the ball to George Pickens like he saw in that play a couple of plays ago. But there's other weapons that he utilizes. I like his decision-making. I really do. I like his on third down, however, he does seem really focused on Freiermuth, and I don't have the data. I really don't have the data to back that up, to be honest with you. But here's Freiermuth in the slot and a bunch left. Run this little, delayed out. And who wouldn't want to throw the ball to this guy on third down? He's extremely powerful. Sure hands. These are going to be all third down plays against the Falcons. Not every third down play from the game, but here on out, the last 5 or 6 plays is only going to be third downs. Generally targeting Freiermuth, as you can see. And I didn't cherry pick these. I just grabbed like 5 or 6 in a row. 3rd and 2 converted. Seem to have trouble along the left side, like left guard area. And I could be way wrong on that. If there's any Steelers fans watching want to correct me, go right ahead. I generally feel like I see trouble in this area, left guard, A gap, B gap, when there is pressure. But watch him go through the progression quickly. I'll slow this down. Looks to his right, looks even further to the right, so he's on the second part of the progression, comes back before the pressure gets there. I find that tremendously impressive. I mean, I know he's 24 years old. I know he was in the building with the Steelers, when he was at Pitt, because I think they practiced in the same building, so they knew what they were getting. But that might be why it was a smart pick for them. I understand that they had other needs, offensive line, and there was other players out there that could have been grabbed that maybe could have more of an impact as a position players. I get it. But I think they knew what they had. And again, I've only watched really 4 games in detail or in depth and grabbed these like 25 throws. I think he knows what he's doing in their offense. I don't know if they've catered the offense to him or if he's just fit into the system very well. Not showing you all completed passes. So 3rd and 11, a Z under from the top side and like a drag from the slot on the bottom. Those 2 routes end up kind of coming into each other. Kind of throws it out. It's a drop, obviously. They've got multiple guys, and Ravens fans should be familiar. One concept that Ravens fans should be really familiar with is 11 personnel has given us trouble against the Steelers for years. Now, I know they don't have Ben Roethlisberger, but they operate out of 11 personnel a lot, and the tight end is a receiving threat, as you see here. It's going to be a unique game, if you ask me. I understand there's people who think that the defenses could dominate, and that makes sense. And this could be a 17-14 type game. I could see that. I also feel like both teams have a little bit more playmakers than they're given credit for. And you could see people, do something like this. Maybe not break 2 tackles. I mean, the Falcons' defense on block destruction and tackling leaves a lot to be desired. A lot. And you see that manifest itself over the course of the year. Let me know what you think of Kenny Pickett, just from this film that you've seen here, or games you've watched live. I don't watch a lot of Steelers games live, to be honest with you. I generally just focus on the Ravens and then do my work. But I'm impressed. I understand the stats are not great. Even the last 4 games. I think the last 4 games when they're 3-1, and I say he's playing turnover free, he's still only 61% completion in the last 4 games. Only 2 touchdowns, 835 yards. But no fumbles and no interceptions. If he plays turnover-free ball on Sunday and gives 60 to 64% completion percentage, 220 yards, something like that, I think he puts the team in position to win. Or at least, be right there at the end. Let's take a look at Najee Harris. All right, Najee Harris, a big 230-pound running back, strong, rugged in his 2nd season with the Steelers. We're going to let some plays run here. I'm going to talk about some of them in a little bit, but at first, let's just talk about the last 4 games. I'm going to really stress that with this Steelers offense and the Steelers team. Again, they're 3-1 their last 4 games. Najee Harris's best stretch of the season has coincided with that. Let's just do carries. 20, 20, 10, and 17 in those 4 games. So 67 carries in the last 4 games. So decent-sized workload. 305 yards rushing in those 4 games. So 4.55 per carry. Now, for the year this year, he's at 3.8. Last year, he was at 3.91. What I think I see is a lot of inside runs like this, whether it's pistol, whether it's A-gun, B-gun, whether it's duo, split zone, inside zone. There's a lot of inside stuff. Don't see as much outside stuff with him. I do not have a segment here on McFarland or Snell. I feel like I see more outside runs when they're on the field, but I don't have the data necessarily to prove it. But there's what looks like an attempt to at least run something that's more horizontal. But you can see the track that he's on. He ends up kind of tripping over O-lineman's foot. So, he's in the best stretch of the season for him. If you ask me, he's got a 99-yard game, a 90-yard game, an 86-yard game in the last 4 games. He's also got like a 17 for 20, a 10 for 28, something like that. I love this play. Very few teams in the NFL run trap, and this is an influence trap, which is really cool. So they're trapping this D tackle here. This guard's going to pull. So normally if this D tackle's key in that guard, which he should be, he thinks that, he's going to get a down block here. So he's going to try to fight this pressure because he thinks the ball's going here where the pulling lineman's going. Well, it's an influence trap. He's pulling, stepping to him, and then going around to the front side inside backer. And then the trap is coming from the right guard. Cool play. I'll go slow-mo with it a couple of times so you can see it. So basically tricking that D tackle into thinking it's flow away from him to his right, our right on the screen, thinking he's going to get a down block, and he doesn't. He gets trapped. Influence trap. Cool concept. All right, Harris played twice against the Ravens last year, 21 for 71 in the first meeting in Pittsburgh, and then the second one, 11 for 28 in Baltimore. This is one of the better runs that I've found from him for the season, or for the last 4 games that I have film of, I should say. He breaks tackles. I know there's people out there who denigrate him and talk about him in certain ways. I like his cut ability. I like his ability to cut things back like this Now, in this case, it happens to be a safety that runs upfield and gets himself out of position, and he takes advantage of it. If the Steelers are to control the game offensively, they have to generate some type of rush game. Now, the Ravens have lost games where they've shut down the run, though. So you could say, Coach, I don't think the run game really matters for the Steelers. They've just got to be able to hit big pass plays late in the game. Most of their run game, or most of their run focus, is up the middle. I'm talking B gap, C gap, maybe. All right, you got some C gap plays, don't get me wrong. And then you have some plays like this where, kind of looks like duo, maybe, but I don't know. I'll be honest with you, I didn't give you the down and distance on all these because I just found so many plays where they're just trying to hammer the thing up the middle, especially when they're under center. It seems like under center, there's more run plays than in the shotgun. I don't know if that holds to be true. I didn't research that at all. I'm just telling you from the 4 games I watched, it looked like under center was a whole lot more run than pass. I like Najee Harris. I understand that people judge players quickly, especially ones that are drafted early, especially ones that come from Alabama, but I feel like a lot of these young guys get judged too quickly, too harshly. And, last year, 1,200 yards rushing, 3.9 per carry. And you see sometimes there's runs that look like that one where people are like, well, why doesn't he cut it here? Or why doesn't he cut it there? Well, we don't know what he's told, number one. Number two, there's at least one missed block here, if not 2, and he still finishes the play on his feet. I like the strength that he has. I like the tenacity. As a Ravens fan, I hope that we can come in here and just hold their run game down to 50 yards or less, turn them one-dimensional. But I think Najee Harris has the ability to make plays in the run game, in the pass game. I know the Ravens' defense has been very good lately, particularly since picking up Roquan Smith, and very good against the run, exceptional against the run. I think the Steelers are a better offense than last year, and I know that obviously they have a rookie in there instead of a Hall of Fame, 2-time Super Bowl champion quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. But I feel like the pieces are better there. I feel like the O-line is better. Najee Harris is a little bit more decisive. Let me know what you think of Najee Harris in the comment section. Kenny Pickett, Najee Harris, George Pickens. Freiermuth is obviously a big piece as well, but I still feel like they have other weapons that are complementary and are going to make this a balanced offense to try to stop. I see some issues sometimes, and I said it in the last section. I see some issues occasionally, sometimes on the left side. Again, you've got a D tackle beating the left guard here, but I don't pretend to know what weeks, certain guys were out, or certain guys were injured and unable to play. Inside zone. Doesn't mind going up into small spaces, and even at, 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds, he's able to slide through there. 3 times either at 90 yards or approaching it in the last 4 games. Pretty significant if you ask me. 3 touchdowns. Playing his best ball in the last 4 weeks of the season, or these last 4 weeks of the season. I feel like the Ravens have a challenge on their hands to kind of make this team one-dimensional. I don't think it's going to be easy to make them one-dimensional at all. We've made certain teams one-dimensional lately in terms of totally shutting down the run game. I feel like the Steelers have a better opportunity to get a little bit more yards than we're accustomed to giving up. I'm not sure that they're a totally balanced team. Run pass, I know they're at like 4.2 yards per carry for the year, 1,400 rushing yards. So far, middle of the pack-ish in terms of total rushing yards. I still feel like they present a little bit more of a challenge, especially out of 11 personnel. Me personally, I look for their split zone stuff and some of their wind back plays that is designed to look like split zone, but then the pulling H-back is like wrapping up and leading up on someone. If it was me, that's the plays I think the Ravens might have trouble defending when Najee Harris is on the field. All right, now let's talk about a guy that I think brings a lot of big playability to the Steelers offense and was a great draft pick for them. Najee Harris is going to, give you a lot of effort, a lot of 4, 5, 6-yard runs. He'll get the ball in his hands in the pass game some and contribute there as well. Kenny Pickett's going to make a lot of good decisions, get the ball to the right player, spread the ball horizontally, and also spread the ball to multiple guys. But George Pickens is a guy that can change the game probably with one snap. He looks like he's open even when he's not open. And again, I generally only have film from the most recent 4 games, but I also have some from earlier in the season for Pickens. And a lot of highlight catches. I mean, for real. A lot of highlight catches, and what you'll notice is that a lot of them are within 4 or 5 yards of the sideline. Because of his height and because of who's playing out there, generally at corner, he's got some physical advantages there. And Kenny Pickett really trusts him. I mean, you can see when the ball is thrown certain times. I don't think this one actually is a touchdown. I would suspect this one was called back. I don't pretend to know, to be honest with you. It looks to me like probably was not a touchdown, but he may get 2 feet in. But in any case, unbelievable catch. I mean, fantastic catch, turning back. Looks like he does get 2 feet down, maybe before that hand hits out of bounds. But this is a guy that could cause the Ravens problems, particularly when they put him in the slot. It's going to be a real interesting matchup over there on the right side, which is generally where he lines up between him and Marcus Peters. There's the catch. Left foot down. Maybe they tapped the right foot down before the hand hit. So maybe it was a touchdown. I don't pretend to know. I just know it was a hell of a play. Him versus Marcus Peters on the outside, on the right, could be an issue for the Ravens. Him in the slot, I wonder how the Ravens are going to cover it. They might have to move Marlon Humphrey in there when that happens, and that could create issues somewhere else. Makes catches along the sideline against everybody. Maybe not against everybody, but against a lot of teams. And I've mentioned it in the Kenny Pickett section. Yeah, does he occasionally get off with a little bit of a push-off? I don't think it can be called a push-off, though. He's not really extending his arms. He's just putting his hands on the corner to kind of try to use him and guide him away from and create just a little bit of space. I mean, I think it's a hell of a play. It's a smart play, a veteran play. Sometimes he's not open, but he's still open, like I said here. We all saw this catch on the highlights. Kenny Pickett's throwing the ball. Again, I mentioned this in the Kenny Pickett section. Kenny Pickett's throwing the football early, play cover 3. He can go over there, and George Pickens can make these catches. I'm not saying that, he's going to be a 7-catch, 3 touchdowns, 210-yard per game guy ever, who he does beat for a catch here on an in-breaking route. Up top, we'll slow it down. It's a long ride on this RPO by, I think, Trubisky early in the season. Gardner snapping to play man in the last second, being physical as usual. And it doesn't bother Pickens. Big target. I think he likes the contact. Seems like it anyway. I think he kind of prefers the contact on these long throws downfield. I love this route. He had Elam, all kinds of thinking that this was going to be a vertical, and it certainly looks like it all through here. And then at the last second here, he's bringing this back down, coming back to the sticks. Great route, great throw. Again, I think they trust him. They trust him to be in the right spot, and they have a connection there together. It looks like they've been throwing the ball to each other for years, or throwing the ball and catching it for years. Short route, trying to break a tackle and get in the end zone. Great hands, great catch radius. Don't need it really on this play. Pickett trusts him. Pickett's dealing with pressure a lot of times back there. Like I said, in the last 4 games, 11 sacks allowed. So I think there's times when it's man and he's got to get rid of the ball quick. George Pickens is his guy. Third down, he really likes Freiermuth. From what I've seen, Pickens can be that guy too. I want to show you this one and then one more. I know that most people already understand the type of talent that Pickens has. The thing that I like about this play is he doesn't just stop playing because he's right next to the sideline and there's 2 or 3 defenders there. A lot of guys would stop playing and maybe get out of bounds, maybe live to fight another day. Nope. He's going to keep fighting and make contact and be physical. Said this earlier as well. I love how Kenny Pickett uses the whole width of the field. You can see there's a ride here, and he's going to look in this direction initially. Doesn't go over there for whatever reason. Comes back to George Pickens on the other side of the field. A little bit of a weak throw, obviously. But he uses the width of the field in the progressions. And not every quarterback does that. I don't know that he does it every play, but he does it often enough for me to notice it. This one is awesome. The little move that he puts on the safety first. The catch, and then getting yards. But let's also take a look at, let's look at the move one more time. The little shake he gives the safety, so the safety can be wrong. And you can see the safety had no chance. Ball's already there. Nobody has a chance. Throwing it over the second level guys in front of the safeties. One thing I want to point out. Watch when Kenny Pickett throws this football. He's just now starting his little shimmy on the safety. Kenny Pickens already loading up. He's released the ball just as he's finishing his moves. They trust each other. They're in line. They're coordinated. I think he could be the difference in the game for real against the Ravens, because the Ravens could play great defense for 3.5 quarters like you've seen, and it seems like George Pickens is a guy that can make one play. In the slot, he's going to be a handful. I don't know how. I think this is Michael Carter II for the Jets. Who would the Ravens have on him here? I would suspect on this third down it'd be Marlon Humphrey. But then we got issues with other guys. So I don't know exactly how the Ravens match up on 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 when they put Pickens in the slot. And then you've got Freiermuth at tight end. I think there's some matchup problems that the Ravens might have against the Steelers team. Potential matchup problems, because Freiermuth and Pickens both have such a catch radius, and they're both so tough once they do get the ball in their hands. This was the first one I showed you. Let me know what you think of the 3 players I've previewed for the Steelers offense. There's some missing elements. It's not a complete preview, obviously. I ran out of time this week. I was sick for a couple of days, so lost some of my prep time. But these guys I thought was the ones that I wanted to focus on. And we let the graphics Yoda create a really cool graphic for it. I think it's going to be a tough game, reminiscent of most every Steelers-Ravens matchup. I can't wait to watch it. Me personally, I respect the Steelers a whole lot more than I know a lot of Ravens and Steelers fans have for each other's franchises, because I see so many similarities. And when I say similarities, I mean historically. Historically, these two franchises have been similar. Tough, rugged, physical defenses, defining personalities on the defensive side. Great defensive minds as coordinators, throughout the decades, no matter who they were. There was multiple guys passing the torch for the Steelers and multiple guys passing the torch for the Ravens. Were I to try to do a prediction, I think it all depends on turnovers, for real. I think it depends on turnovers. The Steelers' defense, coverage-wise, has been so dangerous that I talked about a little bit earlier to deal with them. The quick passing game for the Ravens concerns me. The reliance on the quick passing game with Huntley, I think, is a little bit problematic when you're dealing with the Steelers, who play a lot of two-read when you get twins or two detached. And I think it opens up the possibility for pick sixes or big plays in the pass game. I think Huntley is going to have to be on his game in terms of diagnosing the coverage. If you see him set to throw quickly and then pump fake often, it's probably two-read. It's probably some type of read coverage that the Steelers have played for a couple of decades, and they've perfected it. Now the Ravens know they play it, so there'll be some counters to the counters. I'm looking for a 18-17 game, 17-16, something like that. Would it surprise me if it got to 24-21? It would surprise me. It would. I think this one could go either way. I know there's a lot of people who think I'm crazy, who think that the Steelers are a lock. I just don't see how you can say that. Not with the type of defense that the guys that the Ravens will have on defense. The moment that Kyle Hamilton is inserted back into the defense, we're a different team. We just are. Were Marcus Williams to play, we would be even higher ceiling and higher floor team, but I know he's not playing it. I think he's got 3 more days of no contact or something like that. But in any case, I'll take Ravens 17-16, maybe 18-17, something like that. Let me know what you think of my thoughts in the comment section. I don't usually do a straight prediction. I think there's a wide variance of this with turnovers. If someone is +2 turnovers, all bets are off as far as final score. You could see something like 28-12, 28-10 if you get 2 turnovers, particularly if one of them is a defensive touchdown. And I think that's the key. The Ravens or the Steelers defenses have got to figure out a way to try to get, a little bit of cushion for their offense that theoretically should struggle with the other team's defense. Appreciate you guys' time. Let me know what you think of the preview. I know the beginning part was slightly different than normal, but I thought the data was something that I needed to touch on, because it's been something that's been formulating in my mind for a while and been a discussion point in our Discord for the better part of the season. Appreciate you guys' time.